Welcome. My name is Laura Simon, and today I want to introduce you to our paper Feeling in Sync, Reducing the Impact of Network Latency on Joint Rearing, that I have written together with my colleagues Lina Klaas, Anton Lammert, Bernd Fröhlich, Jan Ehlers, and my supervisor Eva Honecker. Engaging in rhythmic and coordinated activities such as dancing or exercising together has been long recognized as a driver of social connection. People experience greater closeness and sympathy when they synchronize their movements. And this shared rhythm can also enhance trust, encourage cooperative behavior, and improve overall user experience. However, in mediated environments such as social virtual reality, maintaining synchrony is considerably more challenging, as you can see here. These are my colleagues performing a very simple rhythmic activity in VR. For one, it seems like, as she made a pretty good job, that they are moving in sync. But if we look at how the other perceived the interaction, it looked like the other person moved completely different and out of sync. Here, even relatively small delays can make the interaction feel asynchronous, and thereby reducing social presence and diminishing the quality of social engagement. Many studies attempt to reduce network latency or predict users' movements from a technical perspective. But so far, there have been only a few studies that propose design to make synchronized interaction more tolerant of network latency. For example, on the left, Van Damme et al. Investigate in their work the impact of latency on the perception of users within a collaborative VR interaction. Recent research suggests that synchrony-enhancing design strategies may counter network latency challenges. And here, incorporating of rhythmic cues, feedback mechanism, and multisensory stimuli can promote mutual adaptation and support temporal alignment, improving not only task performance, but also social closeness in mediated settings. For example, Latala et al. Supported in their work choreography dancing in VR. Here, dancers' arms were connected through a glowing band, supporting synchrony by facilitating the perception of partners' movements. But it does not visualize synchrony itself. Nevertheless, it remains unclear to what degree synchrony-enhancing cues can mitigate the disruptive effects of network latency, and whether their influence differs depending on modality. Based on this, we asked ourselves whether and how additional feedback facilitates synchronization, and can additional feedback enhance tolerance to latency by stabilizing coordination. To address these questions, we investigate how synchrony reinforcing feedback can support coordinated movements in a dyadic rowing task despite latency. Here, players sat side by side in a rowing boat on a lake, seeing each other by slightly turning their head and faintly hearing both of their paddle sounds. We developed three feedback concepts that occur or vanish based on participants' level of synchrony, measured through the frequency of their rowing strokes. First, a visual feedback concept with glowing particles floating around the boat if participants rowed in sync for a specific amount of time. It tries to motivate to stay in sync. Second, an audio concept you can hear right now, where the volume of the slide background music gets increased or decreased based on the participant's level of synchrony. And third, a combination of both, having visual and audio combined together. These concepts were then tested and evaluated within a user study, using a 3x4 factorial design where we varied these three concepts with an additional feedback type without feedback. In addition, artificial added latency was varied within increments of 0, 150, and 300 milliseconds, resulting in an overall number of 12 conditions. A total of 34 people participated in our study in pairs, with an average age of 26 years. The experimental task consisted of jointly rowing a virtual rowing boat towards a finish line. Participants were instructed to coordinate their movements to achieve a shared rhythm and to maintain a straight trajectory towards the finish line without talking. After each condition, they filled out a questionnaire regarding their subjective perception, and after the whole experiment, we did a final interview to get to know about their experience and preferences. Beside these subjective ratings like perception of coordination, task load, design effectiveness, as well as social aspects via the questionnaire, we measured performance data like completion time, the level of synchrony, and path deviation. In our study, we used the MetaQuest 3 with a controller handle extension connected to a client PC. The two client PCs run our Unity application connected to a dedicated server PC via a local lobby. Without artificial latency, we had a baseline delay of 34 milliseconds, and additional delays were induced with Clumsy by adding controlled outbound packet delay, simulating round-trip latency typical of remote social virtual reality. Coming to the objective performance results. In general, we analyzed our data using the statistical method of linear mixed models, taking the condition with no additional latency in feedback as a baseline. Here, synchrony and path deviation both decreased with increasing latency, especially with higher delays. This suggests that delays disrupted phase alignment between participants, leading to out-of-rhythm strokes and gradual drift away from the intended straight path. The findings also indicate that pairs prioritize staying in sync and maintaining speed over achieving path accuracy. This tendency was reinforced by study emphasis on synchrony feedback, which focused participants' attention on being in sync rather than staying on the straight line. And in addition, no feedback modality had any influence on objective performance. Compared to the subjective ratings, the results show that latency, especially higher delays, significantly impair coordination and togetherness. Here, latency was not perceived as it is, but the disruption were often attributed to personal or interpersonal causes. Visual and audiovisual feedback can counteract the latency effects here. Even at higher delays, both perform at a similar level, with multimodal feedback being significantly more pronounced. It is striking that social closeness remains stable overall, while the sense of togetherness decreased significantly without timely multimodal feedback. The perception of design effectiveness appears to be shaped not by latency, but by the modality of the feedback provided. Only the type of the feedback has a significant effect of user experience. Visual and audiovisual feedback performed similar, but our impression was that the multimodal feedback is the most robust, because performance stays consistently high and shows less variability across participants and latency conditions. This also applies to the other subjective measures. In general, it supported smoother interaction, masked latency effects, and improved social presence and togetherness. Nevertheless, our study and the results have the following limitation. We decided for a controlled dyadic VR setting with limited trials and without a voice communication to isolate synchrony effects. The task context was attentionally specific, which strengthened the internal validity but naturally limits the generalizability. Building on this, the next steps are to extend the paradigm to a broader collaborative context, including different tasks and multi-user scenarios with more than 2 people. To investigate the influence of the normally given voice communication you have in reality, and to further explore on adaptive multimodal feedback, for example like haptics. In summary, perfect synchrony in VR is a physical ideal. But perceived synchrony can be enhanced through design. To minimize perception of latency, systems should incorporate design concepts like explicit, multimodal and intuitive feedback that enables users to maintain coordination and social connection despite inevitable network delays. Our work shows that objective asynchrony does not prevent subjective alignment, and this subjective synchrony is enough to create togetherness. Thank you very much.